Good morning, Lynn, and I hope our listeners saw the last segment, because really the last segment leads into this segment. We talked about being victims, we talked about failures and successes, we talked about illnesses, we talked about what happens when you're on the top of the ladder and suddenly you fall all the way down to the ground and you can hardly get up, and that you want to be a victim. And that you, yes, and Lynn is pointing out to me that I need to be looking forward and not looking at the clock. There is one important correction I'd like to make regarding the last segment, and that is that I gave the wrong name. It was my wife Valerie who died of cancer and was dying of cancer for years and years and years, and it wasn't Elaine, who is my present living, wonderful, God-given wife. So I've put that straight. But I'd like to talk again, continue to talk about this victim thing. Let me tell you what happened to me. I could easily have, well, I probably was in depression for quite a long time. You know, you spend, let's say, 20 years building up a business and getting the applaud of the press and the applaud of all the people that you know, and being invited to dinner parties every 5 minutes. And this is what happened with Valerie and I, my late wife. And what happened with her was that, with her and me, was that all of that suddenly stopped. It went away like overnight. It was like everyone said to everyone, don't have anything to do with Joseph Caplan anymore because he's lost his money. And that's a sadness, but it is a reality. So now I want to tell you that I mentioned last time that I walked along the seashore and I had many thoughts, and I began to think about what went wrong and why it went wrong, and was it just the economy which was in a disaster at that time and is every few years, or was it me? And I'm pleased to say, I think, that I came to the conclusion that it was me. And the main reason, there are two reasons, but the most important reason is I didn't pray at all. Do you remember that story I told you about when I was being wheeled down the corridor and I was only semi-conscious and I was going for heart surgery, and I, for the first time in countless years, said a prayer to God. And I said to God, I'm so ashamed of it, this was the prayer that I made to God. I said, I've worked so hard and I've done so well. These are the exact words. Why are you letting this happen to me? And you remember me saying to you that if God had answered me, he would have said, well, I haven't heard from you for 20 or more years. Why should I care about you? But God isn't like that. God is a forgiving, loving, trusting God. And he wants the best for us, whether we're successful or unsuccessful, whether we're rich or poor, whether we're Jew or Gentile or anybody else. God wants the best for us. I know that in my heart. I know that from reading the Bible and studying the Bible and preaching from the Bible. I know that again and again and again. Anyway, the point I want to make is that I turned away from feeling sorry for myself and I began to pray. This is after everything collapsed, after I was a nobody having been a big somebody. I began to pray, and it was difficult at first because I hadn't done this for so many years. But as time went by, I became more and more secure in the knowledge that the God I was praying to was far, far, far more important than all the things that had taken place in my life, the good things or the bad things. It was God that mattered. And so I began to worry about not having had communication with God. I began to study the Bible. I began to read about God, and I'd like to tell you a bit more about God as time goes by. Thank you.